Hey, friends, you got the BeefLoaf. You got my man Chorizy. Yes, I did point the wrong way. It should be that way. We're here for a quick, semi-quick, going to be longer than the last few I've done, video talking about the White Sox 40-man roster and what we would do with it if we were in charge of it. So we're going to go through the whole thing. We're going to clip out people, keep people we like, whatever. So let's start right now, Chorizy, with the position players on the 26-man roster. These are kind of the non-injured ones. This is how we ended the year with people. Now, a couple things to note out here. Yasmani Grandal and Elvis Andrus are out because they were free agents. Their time with the White Sox is absolutely over. If they were to come back, they'd have to be re-signed. So we'll start with everyone but them on this list. First, we got Tim Anderson. He's got a $1 million buyout or $14 million to stay on the roster. What do you think about him?
You know, I think you're probably buying it out at this point. I think you may not be getting rid of Tim, but you may be buying out the option and then saying to Tim, hey, you know, I know you're willing to play second base and you need a rebound year to show that you're worth something. You know, are you willing to play second base here for $5 million? You know, and I think it's a tough conversation to have with a guy who you made a documentary about. But at the same time,
he won a batting title for you not that long ago.
Yeah, it's also the most honest conversation that could be had right now. And I don't think you pay him $14 million to be here.
Yeah, that's I would have to agree with that. Next up is Andrew Benintendi. He's got 4 more years on his deal. He's going to be here. Eloy Jimenez, he is under contract for a couple more years, even before the options roll up. So I have to think he's going to be here. Yohan Moncada, also under contract for just 1 more year. How are you feeling about that trio right there, Chorizy?
So I've never really felt good about Benintendi, but I think with Eloy, I'd have him in the offseason doing the opposite of Willie Mays Hayes and saying, every time you hit the ball on the ground, you owe me 10 push-ups. That should be his entire winter. And then Yohan, I was, we're starting in on the trade with every team. I'm trying to find as many teams as possible to trade Yohan to. And man, I don't want to do it, but I might have to take Anthony Rendon back in one of these trades. I don't know if he even still plays baseball.
I love to see it. I love to see that. All right, next up is Andrew Vaughn. He's hitting ARB year 1. I assume you're going to tender him a contract, Treasy?
Of course. I mean, we all have our problems with on this podcast and in general for the Sox fandom. We want more out of Andrew Vaughn, but you're not just going to cut him loose, right? I mean, it's such a cheap contract, and there's potential there. You're gonna stick with that.
Yeah, I recently did a video where I charted out where he would hit on all these playoff teams. He still would be a valuable enough bat to be on the team, even if you don't really love him as the position he's in. So we'll keep him. Next up, a little more controversial, is Gavin Sheets. Gavin Sheets had kind of a rough year. Treasy, where are we at on Gavin Sheets?
So assuming that option is still there, I believe it's going to still be there. So he'll have a minor league option. He's super durable. There's some value to that if you can put that person in the minor leagues and put him at first base or right field or whatever you're going to do with him down there. And when you need him, he's there, right? He's just a reliable guy. He's not very good. He's not a great player, but he's actually
very bad in right field this year.
He's seemingly a better body than some of the guys that we're going to get to on this 40-man.
I think this might want to be one of the ones where we disagree. I would not bring Gavin Sheets back in any way, shape, or form. I would release him completely. I understand some of the infatuation, but he was worth almost negative -1.5 WAR. I just don't see where he ever slots in on this roster. He can't hit for enough power to make me a believer there. So I would have him out on his ass somewhere. Go enjoy some other ball team or playing in Asia.
I don't hate it. I mean, I don't think we're in a strong disagreement here. I think that's fine.
All right. Next up is Trace Thompson. Trace Thompson.
Get out of here.
You don't want to give him his potential ARB raise of $1.7 million?
Of course not. I mean, I don't know why he was even in that trade. But I mean, seems like a nice enough guy. But there's no use for a guy like that. There's just he's not for this team.
See you later. He's for the streets now. Next up is Corey Lee, catcher Corey Lee, and also catcher Carlos Perez. Give me the two non-Yaz catchers. What do you think about them right now?
Beef, you got to keep them because you don't have anyone else. Like, either one of these guys, I would fire into the sun as soon as you get sign a catcher, right? Like, okay. I mean, like, yep. Carlos Perez is probably first to go, by no fault of his own. Like, I feel like they really like Corey Lee for some reason. I don't know what he does that's good, so I'm not sure why they like him. But no, I mean, like, I could very much see the Sox going into the season with just these two guys. So
your roster.
so like, if you cut one of these guys, I don't know what you're replacing it with, right? That's kind of where I'm at. But I think both are very replaceable.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, they both have two minor league options. I'd be fine keeping both of them. Doesn't mean they end up on the roster. Although I think you're right. There's some shot that both these guys end up here. Perez showed a little bit of promise hitting a little bit down the end, so it showed he could throw a little bit too. Last two guys of the 13-man position players, Lenin Sosa and Zach Remillard. What do you think about those two guys?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sosa's still pretty young, and I think that they still think he has some potential. At the very least, he's a good fielder, and you could use that guy at shortstop. You could use him at second base. I think Remillard's in a different position, but he's so useful. He's such a Swiss Army knife that, like, keeping him on the 40 is reasonable. Keeping him on the 26 makes me unhappy.
I agree with you. There's also a level of incentive. You keep a guy like Remillard because you show lower draft picks. Look, if you work hard and you show that you're at least, a reasonable player here that can do these things, you got a shot. You're going to give you a shot to get there. I think it's good incentive. So, yes, I would keep him, both those guys as well. Now it's time for the pitchers that were on the roster when the season ended, short of injuries. Dylan Cease, he's heading into ARB year 2. He's projected to make $8.8 million. My assumption is that he's going to be here. Mike Clevenger is gone. He is a free agent.
Yeah, I mean, he's most likely, right? Like, he's not going to agree to the option.
It's a mutual option.
But yeah, I mean, like, the Sox may try to pick it up,
right.
but Clevenger knows he can make more money on the open market. He was good enough this year to do that, so he'll be gone.
Yeah, I would tend to think so. I think Jose Urena is also going to be gone. He was a free agent at the end of the year. Just kind of scooped him up. Although he may not have many options out there because he was just kind of like laying around out there. Let's go to...
he could keep laying around out there. I don't need
I was going to say, I don't think... he had a start or two is okay, but whatever. You just finished the season. What about Touki Toussaint-Chorizy? That's the first one we'll go with. He was a starting pitcher. He's in for his first ARB raise, it looks like. And projecting about $1.7 million for Touki from MLB Trade Rumors. What do you think about Touki Toussaint? You keeping him?
Yeah, I think I would keep him. And I think my thought on him may be a little bit different than yours. I'd hope for him to be in like more of a swingman role. Like, he's in the bullpen to start the season, but he can give us a start if we need it. I don't know. I feel like when we were in the soak talking about this, you mentioned having him in the rotation, or at least you figured they would have him in the rotation.
Yeah, I thought there's a potential for a bulk starter. I mean, he originally was a starter, right? And when you got to fill 3 starting rotation spots is what the White Sox are looking at minimum, because depending on how they see Michael Kopech, I see Kopech as a starter. I hope the White Sox do too, because to me it doesn't make sense otherwise. I would think that he would at least get a shot. He'd get a run at it since he was making a bunch of starts down the end and was non-terrible. So yeah, I would definitely keep him
non-terrible. That's what we're going for.
Well, I mean, sometimes starting pitching, just showing up and being non-terrible is worth being on a roster. There's a lot. You can watch some playoffs right now. They wish they had some non-terrible guys to trot out there for some of the starts. So
that's true.
Let's not take that for granted. Durability and non-terribleness. In the bullpen, let's go with. First we'll go with Brian Shaw, who's actually is a free agent. So he's going to be out of here. Although I wish he would come back. To be honest with you, he's so durable. The White Sox could use a rubber arm, and Pedro pitches motherfucker every day.
Yeah, you know what's wild? I didn't have a lot of knowledge about Brian Shaw coming into this year, just to be perfectly honest. I saw how much they were pitching him, and I was like, oh, my God, they're pitching him so much. And you look, and that's his whole career. He's like, he pitches way more than a human arm should be able to handle. Like, it's incredible. So if they were to, he goes into free agency, if they were to bring him back on, minor league deal or something real cheap, I wouldn't hate it.
Beautiful. All right. Next up is Aaron Bummer. He he's here on a longer term contract, $5.5 million. Treasy.
You know, I don't know that I have him on the 40 man to start the next year. Like,
Wow.
I honestly
outright cut him, huh?
I think he has an option. He might have an option, and if he does, you might start him in the minors.
Still on the 40 man, though.
He's got to do something. He's got to do something for this team. Like he's got to change. He's got to change. Like what he's doing right now can't be what he does. And I hope this is, Brian Bannister comes in and makes some sweeping changes to the players. But like he either needs to change his pitch selection, or he just needs to learn how to field his position. Because like you can't be a ground ball pitcher and go flying off the mound like you got shot out of a cannon. Like so, there's a lot of problems with Aaron Bummer, and I don't care that he's going to make $5.5 million or whatever he's going to make this year.
Treasy says you're on thin ice, motherfucker.
I think so. I think he's. I don't know how much leash you give this guy.
All right. Next up is Garrett Crochet. He still has 3 options. I don't think. No. Yeah, he is hitting his first RBI. Sorry about that. They're projecting about $900K. I assume you think he's going to be sticking around here, Treasy. But is that your thoughts? He's here?
Yeah, I don't see them getting rid of him. I don't know. Do you? Like, I mean, I couldn't imagine that scenario.
No. I think he's most definitely here. All right, let's hit the next 3 kind of right in a row. They all have options. Lane Ramsey, the tall and lengthy Lane Ramsey, showed up at the end of the year. He's 6'9". Tanner Banks, journeyman, who still has a couple options as well. And Luis Patino, who the White Sox traded for late in the season for cash from Tampa. What do you think about those 3 guys?
Yeah, I think Ramsey, they seem to like. I think he's kind of a novelty at his height. But like, I don't know. This is where it gets me, Beef, because I don't care about a lot of these relievers. Like I like
we're gonna need a bunch of them though.
You know what I mean? Like but do they need to clog up the 40 man, right? And like who's going to stay on it and who's not? Because you do have guys on the 60-day IL that are going to need to come off of it. You're obviously going to sign some people, and like who's getting rid of? I feel like Ramsey and Banks they like. Patino is young and they went after him, so maybe those 3 stay on the 40. You keep those guys on the 40 because when you get to that next level that you're going to look at, there's only one guy on there that I would say, yeah, keep that guy on the 40.
Wow, that's impressive. All right, so these guys are all going to stay for you. Ramsey, Banks, Patino are staying. All right, now let's take the next pile. These are kind of the back of the bullpen when the season ended. This is when they were just throwing things at the wall. We've got lefty Sammy Peralta, who still has some minor league options. Johan Ramirez, who was a tough one to name. When he came in the game, people were like, whoa, who's this guy? Declan Cronin, who was a 36th-round pick. I mean, it's one of the longest shots to make it to the majors now that there's only 20 rounds in the draft. It's probably going to be the same. And Devi Garcia, who came over from the Yankees. The White Sox signed him over from the Yankees, and he was originally a touted prospect. So these 4 guys, where are you going with these guys, Treasy?
So I'll start with Devi Garcia because I think that he's moved to relief and has looked good. So I have a feeling that they like that. They think that they have something there. And I think that if you cut him from the 40 man or you outright him, I think someone picks him up. I think that's a guy that someone picks up. The other 3, you could outright them today and they will be in AAA tomorrow.
Okay, sorry. So those 3 gone. Garcia will stay. Let's move on to the pile of injured. So as you mentioned, some of these guys need to be lopped back on to the 60-man. Some of them are still lopped back on to the 40-man after they're done with the 60-day DL. Some of these guys are already still there. They're short-term injuries. So we'll start at the very top with Romy Gonzalez. I'd forgotten about Romy Gonzalez because he's been gone since June. Treasy, what are we doing with Romy Gonzalez?
I mean, I'd let him go. I don't have a lot of use for Romy Gonzalez, but I think they'll keep him. I think, especially when they let go of Tim, they're going to be very shorthanded at shortstop, and I think that they're gonna hang on to what they can at the position because at that point it's Romy and Lenine, right? That's pretty much your shortstops. So I think he gets a reprieve because of that, and they like him. They really oversold Romy Gonzalez before the season. So I don't think that they go to the level of cutting him. I don't know that I care that he's on the roster.
Yeah. I was going to say, what's interesting is I just took a look in Baseball Savant, Romy versus Lenine, and Romy's heat maps on the offensive side, especially like hard hit rates, barrel rates and stuff, were well above average, all of them. His main problem is making any kind of contact whatsoever. And he and Lenine both get beat by the fastball pretty substantially, the four-seamer, although they seem to be getting better over time.
Seems like
it could be an issue for both, but if I'm looking at upside, especially in the power potential, I mean, Romy sure has it. I don't know if he'll ever get to it, but I hear that.
I mean, he's also like 4 years older than Lenine. So, like, he's got to get to it pretty soon. You can't be sitting there at like 28, 29, and we're going like, I wonder if he'll ever be able to hit a fastball.
That's very true. Next up is Luis Robert Jr. He's staying. Michael Kopech and Jesse Schultens are injured pitchers at the end of the year that were not on the 60-day IL. What do you think about those two guys, Chorizy? Where are you at with them?
Well, I think Kopech you obviously hold on to. I think it is a little bit much to pay for a guy that you have no idea what he's going to do. But I think you also you consult Brian Bannister on it, and if this is someone he feels like he can really work with, then go for it. If not, I think Kopech, despite what he's shown, would still have some value on the market if you wanted to trade him. Not much, but some.
Someone might be interested, sure, to reclamate that arm. I can hear you. What about Jesse Schultens?
Schultens, on the other hand, I mean, like, did yeoman's work this year, coming in and like being a guy when we had nobody. But if his 40-man spot gets in trouble because there's someone signing that's a starting pitcher, I don't need him on the 40. Like I don't see a lot of utility for a guy like that. But if they're not signing anyone, we need that guy. we got to have a starting pitcher somewhere.
Now, this is probably one where I vehemently disagree. I would 100% keep him. The guy's got three options. He has some experience starting. He has the potential to be an up-and-down guy, which the White Sox don't have a lot of. I think you need guys like this. Like him and Tukey, you might not think they're starters, but I would have them in the holster just in case, because you got some young pitchers coming on that you don't know if they're going to quite make it in time. You're going to have to go out and sign some guys. You're going to need those 7th, 8th starters. To me, a guy like Schultens, who has the options, unlike Tukey. Tukey does not have the options. Like, this guy is super valuable, even if you think he stinks, in my opinion.
Yeah, you need a guy like that right now. That's what I'm saying. Like, if he's getting pushed off the 40-man by pitchers coming in, I'm not too worried about it. But if there's not, you absolutely need this guy.
All right, next up, a guy who went away early in the year and totally forgot about him, Matt Foster. Liam Hendricks, there's an interesting decision there, and then Jimmy Lambert. All three of these guys on the 60-day IL, so they would need to be added back. Chorizy, what say you?
Now, Foster's an interesting case because he's been good at some points. He's been not so good at other points. And you look at this guy and you say, okay, he's coming off an injury. What's he actually going to bring back with him? How valuable could this guy be to the bullpen? And he's one more right-handed reliever, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, so it's someone that you probably bring back. I think he and Lambert are not in terribly different positions here. You probably bring both of those guys back, put them on the 40-man. But I think you really got to see what's there, how everything's working for these guys, because they're getting close to 30. And I think if you're
shockingly old.
Yeah, and if you're not really, if it's going to take you a while to get back to form, and the Sox have to wait this out, and then like you're getting into arb years, it's like, do we need to keep doing this, or do we just get the next guy?
Right. Yeah, I think because of their circumstance, Chorizy, I think these guys may end up DFA'd. Only because of the injuries that you could probably slide them through, reclaim them, and put them back into the system without anyone wanting to grab them and take the uncertainty there. So I think I agree with your assessment, but I think transactionally they might just say, sorry guys, we're going to push you through. If anyone wants to claim you, tough. Otherwise, we'll see you in Charlotte so you can do your rehab. That would be my guess on these guys, but we'll see. We'll see how this ends up turning out. And then the very last guy on the list, who I almost think they just said, Gregory, sit down. You've done enough this year, and we'll give you some rest. Is Gregory Santos. I mean, I would assume he's 100% staying. He had a terrific year this past year.
Yeah, I really like Gregory Santos. I mean, he was one of my positives of the season when we talked about it. I think the one guy on there that we didn't talk about is Liam Hendriks, and I think we could do a separate video for Liam Hendriks because there's a lot of different ways this could go, and I think all of us really like Liam Hendriks as a human being and as as a closer. So I think that there's a lot of different ways that the Sox could handle this situation, and I think that almost warrants its own 3-4 minute video. So we'll hold
I agree, and yeah, I think there's a lot there. So let's move on to the next group in the minors. We're gonna do this in 2 ways. We're gonna do the people that are already on the 40 man, what we think about them, and then the people who December 23rd are gonna force a decision. I'm gonna pass over the people that are already Rule 5 eligible. And the reason being is because I think there's a little more willing to take risks there, especially with those people who have passed through waivers before. If they were a no-brainer in this past season, they would have been on the 26-man roster the way the White Sox went out this year, losing 101. So let's start with 2 young bucks up at the top there. We've got Popeye, Jose Rodriguez, who was brought up for a couple cups of coffee, didn't really play very much. And then Oscar Colas, who was supposed to be the right field solution, and was any right fielders above 250 plate appearances, he was the worst one in the majors. Chorizy, what you thinking on these 2 guys?
Yeah, I mean, Jose Rodriguez, they obviously like him, right? They found ways to get him major league checks throughout the season, right? Like they were like, you're not ready for this, but we want to show you that we like what you're doing, and here's a reward. You get to go up to the majors for a couple days.
Yeah, here's 3 days, prorated of $700,000 at the majors.
Yeah, which hey man, like when you're making nothing, that means a lot. All right, so
sure.
I feel like they do like him, and obviously there's some potential there. We'll see what it becomes. It might not ever become anything, but they're definitely giving him more than his year 23 season. So yeah, keeping him. And Colas, I mean, Pedro doesn't like him, but I will comment there that like I hear a lot of people talk about how Pedro bullied him and like, oh, why does he talk to this guy like this? And it's like, because he should know better, and sometimes you gotta tell the young guy, you're fucking up, stop fucking up. So
yeah, in a way, I'm with you, Chorizy, on that. I want to push back on all the people that are, oh, he only bullies, whatever. Oscar Colas deserved a foot in his ass. Did you watch him play all year? Of course he deserved that foot in his ass. I'm surprised. It was just everything coming together in the bad performance. And Pedro kind of is such a wet rag anyway as a personality. If he had any personality at all, people would love him putting a foot in that guy's ass. But instead, they're like, no, they don't like that. It should be the one redeeming quality that they appreciate from Pedro. But it's surprising that they don't, because the guy deserved it,
But they do still see this guy as a right fielder of the future. I think he's maybe a 4th outfielder of the future now that we've seen a good amount of him. But he's definitely still on the 40.
Yeah, I mean, for me, he's closer to being off than he is for you, but I agree. You're probably just going to hang on to him and gamble that he gets better. The next 2 guys up, Clint Frazier and Adam Hazley. Is there any single solitary reason to keep these motherfuckers around, Tree?
No. And and like I get when your team sucks and you want to take a gamble, you gamble on guys that were picked very high, and you're like, okay, let's see if we could just get like the last squeeze of juice out of them. Can we Mickey Moniak these guys, right?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
You didn't, so get rid of him. It's over.
He's gone, and we couldn't do anything about it. All right. Next up is Davis Martin, who was injured last year, had Tommy John surgery. He is on the 40 man. And then the other guy I want to mention right here is Christian Mena, who would need to be added to the 40 man this December in order for protection from the White Sox. So what do you think, Chorizy, about Davis Martin and Christian Mena?
So I like Davis Martin. I like that, he went out and on his own got better so that he could joined the team. I had no idea who he was when he joined the team in 2022. He unfortunately got hurt and had to miss an entire season. I almost feel like they might keep him on the 40 and 60-day IL him as soon as the season starts. So I could see that. Christian Mena, he's going to push out one of the guys we talked about earlier. Like, I think they're definitely going to put him on the 40 to protect him. And like Sammy Peralta or like one of those guys we talked about earlier, but might just need to Luis Patino, goodbye, or Yohan Ramirez, Declan Cronin. Like, one of you guys has to go to save Christian Mena's spot.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think both the guys are both Davis Martin will stay and Christian Mena gets added. I think Christian Mena has a shot at being in the rotation to start the year. I'll be honest with you. He finished strong in Double-A, and I was like, well, it's close enough. Him and Nick Nastrini. Hey, you know what? They should at least get a look, in my opinion, in spring training.
I would love if they change the philosophy a little bit and say they're fine rushing position players up. Well,
those guys suck when they get here.
Yeah, like pitchers are usually the ones that you could do that with. So do it. Let's see what they got.
Absolutely. All right, last group of the minors. So these guys are kind of a little further down the trough, if you will. We'll start with the pitchers. These are relief pitchers. Alex Spias, who the White Sox actually claimed less than a week ago, I believe, from Texas. We also have Edgar Navarro and Nicholas Padilla. Padilla was a former Cubs farmhand. These three guys, for some reason, they're down here in the minors. Spias was claimed, but the other two guys are down here in the minors when there was a free-for-all at the majors. So, Chorizy, what do you think about these three, and would you be interested in keeping them on the 40-man roster?
If you couldn't scratch that roster, you don't need to be on a 40-man roster. You could... I mean, I was going to say you could put these guys on waivers and no one pick them up. Well, the Sox would pick them up, apparently. Alex Spias is proof of that. But I don't think anyone else would pick them up. So, like, I don't see why any of these guys need to be on the 40.
Yeah, that's I was going to say, to me, this is where you would be rotating guys, because a lot of the guys that we mentioned that were on the roster have minor league options, so you could slide them down here if you sign someone that is better than them or whatever. So I think, a lot of those guys are the potential ones. Alex Spias has great stuff. We were looking at some of his stuff on Fangraphs. 30 great command. He can't find the plate.
The control doesn't exist.
So, I mean, I wonder if this is like a Brian Bannister. This is the first guy we saw as like an obvious guy. Let's grab him, because the White Sox came out of the chute last year and grabbed a bunch of relievers. Gregory Santos was one of them, and he became a monster, right? Not all the guys hit. That's okay, but this was an example. So I think he keeps Spias just because I want to see what he becomes. The other two guys, Navarro and Padilla, that's fine if we don't want to keep him on the 40.
Yeah, I'm not. I won't lose any sleep if any of these guys go away.
All right, last two guys. Brian Ramos, who's in the Arizona Fall League right now and spent his first year on the 40-man last year. And then also Wilfred Veras, who is cruising up towards 21 years old. He's got to be added to the 40-man in December if the White Sox want to keep him. Had a very nice year in Double-A this year. So, Chorizy, what do you think about these two guys?
So I think obviously Brian Ramos is going to stick around, and that's a guy that you got to hope that you'd see him maybe in 2024, maybe in 2025. He's got to get to the big leagues soon if he's going to do something. So I like Brian Ramos. I think there's some potential there. Wilfred Veras, so here's Beef. This is a thing that I have a problem with the Sox. They protect too many guys. Yeah. Is this guy actually going to get picked up if he goes into Rule 5? He's a corner infielder, right? Like, and probably more of a first baseman than a third baseman,
right?
If we're being honest.
Right.
One's going after. No one's picking that up in the Rule 5. Just leave him on. Right. It's fine. Leave him unprotected.
That's right. Yeah, I agree with that philosophy. They've done way too much of that. We talked about that way back when they did that with Mick Rodolfo and Luis Basabe. It's like, don't be scared, because it was because the Padres grabbed three guys that were an A-ball. sat them on the roster when they were terrible, and then they pushed them back down in the minors. I saw an article a couple years later, and it's like, yeah, the guys are still around, but they didn't really do much with this. Like this strategy, no one else has adopted it since. So it's like, well, what's the big deal? Just don't rush it on that.
The Sox tried it with that catcher from the Nationals. I forget. I'm blanking on his name because no one cares.
Yeah, exactly.
Was it Andre Nieto or something like that? Like they rostered the guy for like a whole year. Don't do that. Why are you doing that?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. So there's our thoughts on the White Sox 40-man. What we would do with the people here, who we would slash out and cut. We'd love to hear in the comments. Go ahead and drop down what you think, or hit us up on Twitter. We post this video and let us know what you think about those 40-man cuts. If you like this video, subscribe on our YouTube. That's YouTube.com/from the108. Hit the like button, all that shit. We love you, and we'll see you guys on Thursday night for the 108 podcast. Bye-bye.